volume of prisms. This is the second video. The first video dealt with how to use a formula. So you're going to need your 4 steps for using any formula. You're also going to have your note on 3 ways to find volume depending on the information that you're given. Now the first way is dealt with in the video for chapter 8. That's when you are given a diagram that is outlined in blocks and you can simply count up the blocks. That's the first way. But the second and third way both deal with formulas. That is when you are given a diagram like this that has no blocks. So there's nothing to count. You have to use the formula for volume. So the formula for volume is length times width times height. So we are adding in that third dimension of height. We take area, which is units squared, and we multiply in another dimension, height, and now our units becomes units cubed. Units times units times units equals units to the power of 3. So the steps are still the same. State your formula, substitution, calculation, units. So I've stated my formula. Now I'm going to substitute, and I can do that with my figure, my measurements that are given in my diagram. And I can use the multiplication properties to multiply this any way I like. So you don't have to do length, width, height. You can interchange them however you want to. I'm not real fussy about that at all. So in this case, I'm going to do 12 times 5 times 8. Now remember, you can also put your units in there to remind you that your units will need to be to the power of 3. Why did I do it this way? Well, if you look at now when I go to do my step 3 calculation, I know 12 times 5 is 60. I'll put it here, 60 times 8. Now I can use the tens trick to do 6 times 8, which is 48, place my 1 0, and I have my calculation. So I know, use your properties of multiplication to make things easier so that you can calculate mentally rather than having to write it down. It goes much faster and it's much easier. My last step is units. Now in this case, I go back to my diagram and you see those little hash marks there? That's a short form for inches, inches. So I know my units are inches. Inches times inches times inches gives me inches to the power of 3, or inches cubed. And that, my friends, is my volume. Easy as that. Now, there is a second formula for volume, and that is when you are given, just let me modify my stuff here. That is when you are given already the base. I'm gonna have to redraw my figure here. And I will do another, oh, well that worked. Now, let's say instead of the measurements I'm given, it looks something like this. Like this. What does that mean? Well, in this case, they've given you the area for the base. What is area? Length times width. They've also given you the height. Oh, so they've already done a little bit of the work for you. In this case, the formula is slightly different. It is volume equals base times height. B times H. B stands for base, H stands for height. So in this case, once again, I state my formula. Substitution, my base is already given. My height is 8 inches. Next, my calculation. Once again, I'm going to use the tens trick. 8 times 6 is 48. Place my 0. Last step, units. Inches squared times inches to the power of 1, which is just inches. Inches to the power of 3. Units for volume are always units cubed or units to the power of 3. So there is my work. When you use the 4 steps, you show all of your work. You are studying while you're working your formulas so that you remember them. So those are the 2 last ways to find volume, and those are both on your note right here. Now, to practice this skill,